Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Bobcast for this week, the week of April 16th. I'm Dan Wallace with you. Our first guest this morning is men's lacrosse head coach Tommy Pierce. And Coach, a good week for your team, a week in which you needed 2 wins. You got 2 wins, got yourself to 4-2 in the Capital Athletic Conference, currently sitting in fourth place and would be in a position to host a playoff game. And let's start with that game against Southern Virginia on Wednesday. And a big win, a team that is trailing you, and now you hold the tiebreaker over. They're sitting at 3-3 at this point, and a game that you looked at and kind of said, well, we have to win to break up that mix in the middle and win those tiebreakers. And now after that one, you have those tiebreakers, and that's got to be a good feeling going forward, knowing that they really have to win out to catch you.
Right. So we said, I think, a few weeks ago that when we looked at our conference schedule moving forward, that we obviously didn't want to go into the York and Salisbury games with too much pressure. We wanted to be able to play loose in those games and just know that we'd locked up a conference spot, and that those were two great opponents, and we could go into those games just trying to play our best game, knowing that we were in the conference tournament. And there's a good chance maybe if we win our first round conference game, we'd see those teams again. So I think I like the position we've played ourselves into. Obviously that overtime loss to Mary Wash could wind up meaning home field in the first round, which is tough, but we're in good shape to be in it, and I think we've taken a little bit of the pressure off ourselves in these last 2 games of the regular season coming up. So we like where we are right now.
Well, and then the win on Saturday against St. Mary's, another good one, 12-6, and good for a different reason. You locked up the playoff spot.
Right.
You know that you're in the postseason, at least at this point, whether you host or on the road, but a big win just from the standpoint of you're playing in the CAC playoffs, you got a shot at winning that title.
Right, and then going into last week knowing that if we won one of those games but not both, then there'd be possibly a tiebreaker scenario with us and St. Mary's and Southern Virginia, which kind of puts you at the mercy of some tiebreaker scenarios. So it was really nice to kind of control our own destiny a little bit. And I think we played pretty well on Saturday. We scored some goals in bunches, and I think we're going to be able to look back at the film and kind of see maybe where if we can clean up some of our off-ball movement and some of our timing off-ball, maybe we could have had a few more. But we scored like over 10 goals for a few games in a row now, so I think our offense is starting to come together a little bit, but I think we still can improve, hopefully, heading into the playoffs here.
Well, not just scoring 10 goals and make it now 5 consecutive games. Those are also 5 consecutive wins. You're now on a 5-game winning streak dating back to March 31st with your win against Marymount, 4 of those conference wins. So going into this big week where you get the number 2 team and the number 7 team in the country, and we'll talk about those more in just a few minutes, having that 5-game winning streak momentum, that's got to be a good feeling too.
Yeah, I certainly think our confidence is a little higher now than it was early in the year when we were losing some close ones. So confidence is a strong thing for sure.
One player that I kind of want to touch on from these last 2 games is somebody that maybe flew under the radar for a lot of people that follow your program, but not for you, I'm sure. Nate Collins has been on an absolute fire. 6 goals in the last 2 games alone. He has been lighting it up, and he's somebody who really we didn't see in that starting attack at the beginning of the year, but has kind of worked his way into a very, very pivotal role for your team.
We've been playing through some injuries in the midfield. And as we were playing through those midfield injuries, we decided that we had some more depth at attack that we weren't taking advantage of. So, Paul Rupert's been kind of playing out of the midfield. His role hasn't changed significantly when he's on the field, but he's been coming out of the box for us so that we could put another attackman on the field. And I think since Nate's had that opportunity, he's been finishing at a really high rate. I think I was asked, how I felt about his 4 goals on Saturday, and I said I feel great that they came on 5 shots. That's a great finishing percentage, and if he's going to get 4 goals on 5 shots, then I want him to keep getting those shots. So Nate's definitely made the most of his opportunity. I think he had a lot of points early in a man-up role because we knew he was a pretty good finisher and tight. But he's definitely had a good few weeks for us. We're happy for him.
Well, now we head into those final 2 games of the regular season, and yeah, they are against 2 of the powerhouses of this conference. Of course, everybody knows Salisbury. There's not a person who follows college lacrosse across the nation who doesn't know what they've done over the years. And York, Pennsylvania, right now sitting at number 2 in the country. So you get 2 of the top 7 teams in the country. York here at home on Wednesday, Salisbury on the road, and a big opportunity not just to win a couple games, but you're playing the top 2 teams ranking-wise right now in the CAC and an opportunity with a couple good outcomes to vault your position even higher.
Sure. Yeah, that's what we're saying. We don't feel as though we have a whole lot of pressure on us going into these games. And I think when you can play loose, sometimes it's pretty exciting to see what you can do in a matchup like this. We talked about Saturday after the game. We lost to York by 1 goal last year, and we think we generated some pretty good shots that we didn't shoot very well. So, they have a lot of those guys back, but they've got a couple injuries, and they graduated some of those guys. So we don't think it's a drastically different matchup team to team than it was last year. Obviously, their record is a lot better than ours right now, and they're beating some pretty great opponents. But we're excited to play the game and see where it is. After 60 minutes, but we get pretty excited to play these pretty good teams. And last year, early in the season, we had a couple of signature wins early, and then not a whole lot of signature wins late. And we kind of like the mindset of our team right now, how they're kind of maybe peaking at the right time late in the season. Whereas I think last year, unfortunately, we kind of limped across the finish line at the end with a couple losses at the end of the year. So we like where we're at. We're looking forward to this week and beyond.
Obviously, right now, as it stands, everything's not decided, everything's not wrapped up yet. As it stands right now, you would be that number 4 seed in the Capital Athletic Conference tournament. You would take on Southern Virginia.
Right.
Take on Southern Virginia in the first round here at Bobcat Stadium if things held.
I think it's more likely that we'd be going down to Mary Wash if games play out kind of the way teams are ranked now.
Well, based on the current standings, right now you're 4-2, they're 3-3. Obviously, there's still a lot more that has to play out, but you hold your own destiny in terms of hosting an opening round matchup. As a coach, how much stock do you put into that, and how important is it to host an opening round game versus going on the road to Mary Washington or to Christopher Newport or York, whoever it may be?
Yeah, I think the way that they changed the conference schedule for this year, it's Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. So a lot of times, us and Mary Wash and us and St. Mary's have played each other, I think, pretty frequently in that opening Wednesday game. And that's a pretty tough road trip midweek, just because you got to get your guys out of class. You got to get them on the bus. You got to get off the bus. You don't kind of have as much time to play with your travel itinerary as you do on a Saturday for sure. So I think we'll see this year with the adjusted schedule, if it's as big of a deal in the first round as it was. But, it's always nice to play in the confines of home. And I know if you look at our schedule, if you put a lot of into like home games versus away games, our schedule's a lot different at home than on the road this year. I think a lot of that has to do with some of the teams we played at home, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, if you're a guy that looks at stats and puts a lot into that, then it looks like we're a lot better at home than on the road. So we'll see.
Well, I feel like everybody would rather play at home. That's absolutely certain. Tommy Pierce, fantastic as always. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time today. Joined now on the Bobcast by women's head lacrosse coach Haley Ware. And Coach, we'll get things started with the opener to this week, and it was against Southern Virginia. You traveled down to Buena Vista, and I think top to bottom, a 13-6 win in conference. You got to look at it and think that that's probably one of the best games your girls have played all year long.
It was very positive. I think it was exciting to get a win coming off of a win, and I think also it was really exciting because we got every one of our players into that game. So it was nice to kind of see some of our players that don't play a whole lot to get some experience and to really get some playing time under their belt. So it's always different in games than it is in practice, and so it was exciting to see some of our kids step up in that game.
And, of course, we keep talking about her over and over again. Morgan Cabey, 5 goals again in that one, just continues to light up the scoreboard. And somebody that I really want to talk about from that game, though, they got a pair, and it'll lead us into what's going on this upcoming weekend, is Courtney Ridenauer had a pair of goals as well. And I think maybe somebody on your team that, being a senior, gets kind of overlooked, but has a huge contribution to this offense.
Yeah, Courtney she comes up big for us a lot of times. We have moved her a ton. We run her out of the box for midfield sometimes. We've had her straight midfield. We've had her on just straight attack. So she's a very versatile player that we like to kind of use around the field. And for her to really step up in that game and have 2 goals, I think that was huge, especially her senior year. Another senior too was Sam Cataldo, had 2 assists and 1 goal, and so that was really exciting for her to step up as well. I think that they're starting to realize that time's slipping away from them and what can they do to really contribute. And so the 2 of them, I was really excited to see really add to that attack that game.
And we'll only touch on this one quickly, but Saturday, a loss to St. Mary's, and you go from the high of the high to the win over Southern Virginia to that, and it kind of had to be a little bit of a letdown for you after building some of that momentum heading towards the end of this season.
I was really disappointed in the game. I know that's not our team, and I know that's not how we have trained them, and they have performed in practice. And so to come out with that in the beginning of that half and not have any goals was very frustrating. And we talked a lot at halftime, and we had a lot of girls that decided it was time to step up, and they really helped in the second half make it not as drastic of a goal differential as it was going to be. So I was disappointed, and I do expect a lot more this week as we move forward.
Well, and then this week you get some of the fun stuff. Yes, you have 2 extremely difficult games, which we'll talk about in a second, number 6 and number 1 in the country. We'll get to who that is in just a moment. But at least on Saturday, you get some fun stuff. You get the senior day festivities, and you have 4 seniors, 5 players that are no longer returning. And I just kind of want to give you an opportunity here to talk about what these 5 girls have meant to this program and what the lasting image is going to be that they are going to leave on Frostburg State women's lacrosse when they go.
I think that it's exciting for these 5. They have been with us now for 3 years since we've been here as a coaching staff, and I've seen them grow over time. Jess was a transfer that came in and joined the group of the 4 of them, and just it was a seamless transition for her into it. And I think that they've kind of stepped up all over the field. It's helpful that a couple of them have played different positions. A lot of them defenders that we've moved. Sam Cataldo started as an attacker when I got here, and we moved her to defense, and she's been a starting defender for us. Jess Hartley was a defender, and now this year we've moved her to midfield to play and take the draw. There is just a lot of, Courtney, I mentioned earlier, of how we move her all over the field. So I think just the versatile of all of them being able to maneuver into ways that we need the team to kind of step up different days has really shown over the past 3 years, and they're greatly going to be missed as we move forward next year.
Well, right now, as things stand heading into these two games this week, there's only 9 teams that participate in women's lacrosse. So right now your team's sitting in 7th, but just 1 game out of the playoff positioning, with Christopher Newport, St. Mary's both sitting at 3-3. Marymount's are still a game in hand at 3-2. Don't know what the outcome of that one will be yet, but still very much the playoff positioning for your team is in the hands of your team. You win 2 games, odds are you're playing in the postseason. Simple as that. But again, we mentioned 2 very difficult matchups against the number 7 team in the country in York and the number 1 team in the country in Salisbury, who's just a powerhouse year in and year out. Going into these final 2 games of the regular season, I know you want to think playoffs. What is your outlook on where your team stands and what you think the potential is that your team can achieve?
We say constantly that we're an underdog team and that every opportunity you have nothing to lose and go into it full speed and take risks and chances and see what happens in the outcome. And that's exactly how I feel going into this week. These teams are so talented, and they have a ton of work that they have put in that we all have noticed, and I give them a lot of credit for it. But I also continually tell our team that any day is any day and anything can happen. So if we want to show up and we want to play well those 2 games, by all means. I think senior day helps a little bit. I think that everyone always likes the idea of taking down one of these top teams, and so that's in the back of their head some days. So I think that the opportunity is there. It's just like you said, whether or not our team wants to take it or not.
Well, the first game is on Wednesday, and that is the York College Spartans. That game scheduled for a 6 o'clock start in York, Pennsylvania, your last regular season road game of the year. Going into that game, what can you tell us about the York Spartans that you know, and where do you think your girls may be able to have some sort of advantage?
I think they're a tough team, and I think that, like I said earlier, the work they've put behind it shows, and I give them a lot of credit for where they are right now and how much she's built that program and how they are a top contender all the time now. And going into it, I think that our biggest hope is that they do overlook us and that they think it's pretty easy and a piece of cake, and that we might be able to come off occasionally on attack and get some in there up front. And hopefully, we don't dig ourselves a hole like we did at St. Mary's, and we can perform a little bit better.
That game then on Saturday, everybody knows who anybody that follows women's lacrosse knows Salisbury. They know what they are capable of. They know what this team is. They're 13-0. They're 5-0 in the conference. They're the number one team in the country. It's going to be a tall task, but we saw a 16 beat a 1 in the college basketball tournament this year. Anything's possible. What kind of approach do you think your team will take, or will you have your team take going into that game where, I mean, you really have nothing to lose?
Exactly. Our last game of the season, if then we're totally out of everything. And I think that we just talk about that constantly every day of that scenario you mentioned with basketball. We've talked about that. We have talked about it any day. Anything can happen. And I think it's just really, do we want to step up that day? And hopefully maybe a night game might help a little bit too. It's exciting to kind of play under the lights and senior day and our last game. And there literally is, I mean, the only thing we can say is leave it all on the field. So,
Haley Ware, thanks for the time. Hopefully we're talking to you after 2 massive upset wins next week and a spot in the Capital Athletic Conference playoffs.
Thanks, Dan.
Joined now on the Bobcast by head baseball coach Guy Robertson. And, Coach, a little bit of a quick week. 3 games for you this week, Thursday, and a doubleheader then on Saturday. And let's start with that one on Thursday, a big win over Marymount, and one that you've kind of said multiple times. It's kind of nice for you guys just to get that monkey off your back with them.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's been a long time coming, and those guys have done a great job of building that program up from scratch in 2014 to being something that's been really competitive at the top of the CAC really for the last 2 or 3 years. And I think they've hit a little bump in the road this year, but Frank Leone and his staff have done a job, and just something for whatever reason over the years we haven't been able to get over the hump against them, and it's been tough because you see other teams doing just fine, and for whatever reason we haven't, but we figured it out on Thursday, and it was the timing couldn't have been any better with some of the things that I guess we had gone through over the last couple of weeks, and just scratching and clawing to get any win, and then to get over the hump against those guys after finally getting outside was just what the doctor ordered. So it was really nice.
And I think that can't be overstated as well. Finally getting outside and actually being able to play at Bob Wells Field, get the doubleheader on Saturday as well. Real fast on that Marymount game again. Greg Schneider, another great performance. I think maybe even overshadowed by the amount of offense that your team was able to put together. It was only 6 hits, but you put together 13 runs, a big grand slam by Nick Furman. Pat Bosley took another one over the left field wall, that wind blowing out there that way, and that ball just kept going and going and going. But offensively, a great showing, which I think was good to see, that you can put up 13 runs and not have to rely on Schneider, because he didn't get the run support last year.
No, you're exactly right, and I guess opportunistic is the word to describe it. We didn't leave too many opportunities unturned there with runners on base, so that was nice. Boz hit that home run, and we were able to get up early, and then Furman tacked on there, and they scored a run. I think we were up like 4-0 or something, and kind of cut it a little bit there. But it's been nice to get Greg some run support. I mean, we win a game 26-10, and he started that game, and now he turned another game 11-2, I think, or was it 13-2? 13-2. And get him some run support, which he hasn't necessarily needed, but I know it takes a burden off of him a little bit. He doesn't have to be so perfect like he had to be last year for us to find a way to win. So that's been really nice, and I don't think that can go unnoticed either. The fact that over the last 3 games we played a heck of a lot better defense on dirt, and I think being outside is a direct correlation to that. So it's been a good combination of things for us. Having Greg on the mound to try to get over the hump against Marymount at any time is the right recipe for success, I think. But you add to it that the fact that we were able to be outside and get some nice weather and be at home, I think all those things add up to just having a different feel when you come to the ballpark and not having to get on the bus and get on the bus and get off the bus and all that kind of stuff. So it turned out really nice for us, and Obviously I hope that was signs of things to come, and then you fast forward to Saturday, and it certainly seemed to be. So, but Greg was fantastic. The guys were opportunistic offensively, and we did what we needed to do in order to kind of get that gorilla, throw him aside, and get rid of him, and then hopefully make you feel better about moving on.
Yeah, those two games then on the doubleheader with the number 5 team in the country at the current moment, Christopher Newport. A 12-2 loss, yes, in the first game. I don't think that tells the entire story. Your team did play well defensively again. It was really late in the game that CNU started to tack on those runs. And then in the game 2, the 6-3 victory, and that's really where I want to focus. Top to bottom, a great performance from the pitching to the hitting to the defense. You made one error between the two games on Saturday. Let's start with the pitching in that one, and Corrigan gets the start, only goes 4 innings, but then between Chase DeLost, Daniel Richardson, and Mike Livingston, your bullpen was phenomenal to finish off that game, and it's got to give you a great confidence knowing that if you get a lead late in the game, most likely those guys can shut it down.
Well, you and I talked about it after the game on Saturday, and it was one of those things where those guys, we kind of had a plan in mind of how we wanted to utilize them, knowing that they were fresh and we could get multiple innings, all 3 of them. Just felt like, based on Corrigan's past history, that it was the smart thing to do to limit the number of innings that he had to throw as well. He's a guy that has notoriously given up, a decent amount of hits. He's pitched really well and typically hasn't been getting hit hard, but you're talking about one of the best offensive clubs in the country against a guy who gives up hits typically and has only gone through, past 5 innings for us once this year. So it just made sense to kind of limit what we had to get out of him, allow him to focus on hitting the second half of the game, and bringing in these guys that were fresh that we felt were capable of giving some different looks. And I felt like we were able to really give them 4 different looks with what those guys bring to the table. They're all 4 kind of, different. Richardson and Livingston may be similar, but they still go about it differently. So I thought that just based on the team that they were and based on what we needed for that game, that was the right solution to whatever problems we may face. And, plus those guys need to pitch, and we need to keep them close to the baseball and keep them going. And we were able to do that without overtaxing any one of them. And I think that sets us up moving forward as well. But obviously we had to focus on getting 1 win. Splitting with that crew was just what we needed there. And it just allowed us to continue to build some momentum and hopefully carry it into this week.
Yeah, and that's a huge CAC win when you look at it from the standpoint of Christopher Newport has been beating everybody. Well, they only beat you guys once out of twice. If they go ahead and beat everybody else twice, you get a leg up on the rest of the competition.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It definitely makes you feel like you've gained a game on the rest of the guys in the standings. Those guys are really good, and it took a full all-out team effort in order to get the one that we got. Salisbury handled them pretty good on Thursday, but those are the only 2 blemishes on their conference slate, so feel fortunate to have that. And moving on, hopefully that's something that if you end up with a tiebreaker situation, the way the CAC breaks ties is if the head-to-head doesn't do it, then you go from the top of the conference down and how you fared against the top down. So we have a win against the top in the conference right now that the teams that we're probably going to be up against fighting for these tournament spots don't have currently.
Yeah.
So that's a feather in our cap for sure, and something that they can't take away from us. And but I think as much as anything, it just builds confidence in your own club and helps you moving forward with what we're trying to accomplish. And by no means do we want to rely on any sort of tiebreaker or anything like that in order to try to get to the conference tournament. We want to try to earn it on our own merit. And these couple wins and the way we've played over the last 3 games are certainly a better formula for moving forward and getting to the conference tournament, and then hopefully being successful once we're there.
Well, when you take a look at the conference as a whole as it's shaping up right now, you guys have 7 games left within the conference right now, sitting 5 and 6 overall. You get games with a pair of them with York, a pair of them with Mary Washington, a pair of them with St. Mary's, and one with Southern Virginia. 2 of the teams who York and Southern Virginia, when you look at the standings, are currently they're 6-6, but they're sitting a half a game ahead of you, and Mary Washington and St. Mary's below you. Got to think now that this is the point in the season with 7 games left. where we can really take a jump and vault up into those standings and get into a top 2, a top 3 position going into the CAC tournament.
It's nice to be able to control your own
Yep.
destiny and feel like you have whatever needs to happen within your control instead of having to worry about somebody else helping you out to get there or whatnot. So, no question. The top 3 teams are behind us. Not that the rest of them aren't just as capable, because they are. But moving forward, we're set up in a pretty good situation that if we can go and continue to play good baseball, we got a chance to put ourselves in a position in the conference standings in order to get a good seed and be where we want to be moving forward. And I think more than the seeding is how are you playing going into the conference tournament with the way the setup is right now. And it's not as if you have to go through this 6-team double elimination. You have to win one weekend and then you have to win a second weekend. So I think playing well is obviously going to be important, and the seeding is less important. It's just about getting in. Unless you're one of the top 2 seeds and hosting, at that point I think it makes no difference because you're going to have to go through one of those top 2 guys, or both, depending on how it plays out. But, just getting in is the most important thing at this point, and playing well to do it and feeling good about what we've accomplished in the regular season and allowing that to carry over into our postseason play. But still a little early to be talking about the conference tournament at this point. Nothing's a lock. We got to go out and take care of business. But at least we put ourselves in a position to feel good about what we're doing for the last 7 games of the regular season. A lot of those games are at home. I guess 4 out of the last 7 are at home, which is nice. But we feel now that we can handle our business, that we're capable of, again, competing with some of the best teams in the country, not just the teams in the conference. And that's just confidence that we've been looking for over the last couple weeks. It's nice to find it, and I think that's something that's going to stick with us moving forward.
Well, you get it's supposed to be 4 of those conference tournament or conference games this week. Now it's down to 3 already, thanks to Mother Nature. Once again, that game with York that was supposed to be for Tuesday already pushed back to a date that's to be determined. But you get York at York on Wednesday, and then you get to travel to make that here to Mary Washington comes here to Frostburg on Saturday for a doubleheader. And let's start with that game on Wednesday at York. Greg Schneider's already had a nice rest. You'd have to think going into that, at least anybody that's looking at it from an outside perspective, he's probably your guy with a team that's sitting a half a game ahead of you to throw that game. You got to have confidence in that one. And then Mary Washington is a team that is sitting below you in the standings. Most likely 2 more wins, hopefully 2 more wins, I'll say. And what is going into those 3 games coming up this week? What is your outlook on both your opponents in York and what you think your team is going to be capable of doing against those squads?
Yeah, Greg will go on Wednesday. Everything, as long as everything kind of holds true.
No more weather
and whatnot. It'll definitely be his turn, and I think it's important that, even though it's not necessarily the way we had it drawn up at the beginning of the season for him to be pitching the midweek games at this point, just kind of the way it's fallen out. And I guess if you look at it now, to say you got to get on the bus for one of your last road games in the conference and you get to pitch your best guy, I think that makes you feel better about things moving forward, no doubt about it. York swings the bats, and it's nice to have a guy that you feel like can offset some of that, those offensive guys over there with a guy who's capable of shutting down any hitter. So that's a nice plus for us. Typically, we've swung the bats pretty good against them over the last couple of years, but anything can happen. I mean, we go there last year and we play what ends up being a halted game, and it ends up being a 19-15 final, and the wind's blowing out and balls are going out left and right, and we actually end up having to win the game here at our place, 3 or 4 weeks later. And then I think back to the year before in 2016, I think we had to come back and win in extra innings or tie it up in the 9th and win in extra innings in order to beat them. So anytime you go there, you know that it's going to be a dogfight. So I expect really no difference coming up here on Wednesday. So it'll be a tough matchup for sure. And but again, like you said, they're a half a game ahead of us. It's nice to be able to control your own destiny a little bit against the teams that are in front of you in order, if you can get a couple wins against those teams ahead of you, you kind of have a little bit of a stronghold on one of those, 6 spots in the tournament. So then moving forward to Saturday, I mean, Mary Wash is another team that last year beat us in walk-off fashion, both games down there last year. They don't seem to like coming to play here as much as they do like playing at home, and they get to play a ton of home games, so I'm happy to have them have to get on the bus and come play us here. And But, they have a couple guys on the mound that can do some things. They put up a ton of runs against Salisbury here over the weekend. So those guys will be prepared and ready to go. And there in the hunt too, trying to figure out a way to scratch and claw to get into the conference tournament, and us being ahead of them means that they got, if they can beat us, now they got a chance to get back in the mix. So they'll be prepared and ready to go, and we will be as well. So obviously I'm not looking by York by any means. No. We're just going to take them as they come. But I expect it to be 3 tough ball games, and we're going to have to play good baseball in order to win. But I feel like, we're playing good baseball now, and with what we've been getting on the mound, and, hopefully we'll have a chance to win all 3 of those games.
Well, hopefully we're talking to you again next Monday after 3 more wins in the CAC. Guy Robertson, thanks for taking the time to talk. Joined now on the Bobcast by head softball coach Wes Landrum, and it was a little bit of an odd week for your team, Coach. It started off really well and then kind of slipped down a little bit from there. So let's start at the beginning of the week from last week. You took on Hood in the doubleheader that was originally supposed to be a home doubleheader here. Because things had to be switched around, it ends up being a doubleheader down at Hood, and you come away with 2 wins with arguably your number 1 starter not pitching, and that's got to be a pretty good thing in your mind if you can come away with 2 victories without Short.
Yeah, I mean, I think they, the other 2 kids that threw that day did an exceptional job of throwing strikes and controlling what they could control. I think that overall we played well. I mean, I think it was a good sign. We played Sunday, so sort of playing a little bit more regularly helps too. But yeah, I mean, it's a great sign when, when we can have kids step up to the plate and do what they need to do for us to be successful. So it's awesome to see and great for them to have this success.
And one of those pitchers was Allie Weeman. I want to get to her a little bit more in just a minute. And you were supposed to then take on Dickinson in a doubleheader on Thursday. Well, due to weather that was coming yesterday, as everybody saw, that torrential downpour that happened, that was not going to allow the Wesley doubleheader to be played on Sunday. So that gets bumped up a couple days to Friday. You end up 1-1 in those 2 contests, and that first game, a great showing from Short, and just no offense to back her up. And something you and I talked about after the 2 games finished is the fact that all 9 of the runs that your team allowed that day were unearned runs, and that's going to be an issue with winning some games.
For sure. I mean, I think anytime you give up 9 unearned runs, it's not a recipe for success, whether it's 1 game, 2 games, 3 games. I think I think Allison throwing a 2-hitter, we kind of expect to win those games, and we should. Game 1 was kind of a tale of some missed opportunities more than anything offensively, I feel like. But I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to find a way to stop a bad inning from happening. We're letting 1 mistake cascade into 2 and 3, and it's turning a 1 or 2 run inning into a 4 or 5 run inning, and that's really what's hindering us the most right now.
That second game, that game 2, it ends up being an 8-7 victory, but you look at the score line, it doesn't tell the entire story of the game. Your team was down 1-0, your team was down 4-1, your team was down 7-3. They're able to fight their way back, and it was an extremely resilient showing, and I think it showed you that there's no quitting these girls no matter how far they're down in the count.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've kind of shown that all year. We've done a great job of battling. Our sense of urgency hasn't been fantastic a lot of times this season. It was better on Friday for sure, and I think that resiliency is a good characteristic to have, and it's one that they've shown quite a bit this year. So. Well,
and I think the place that I really want to talk here about Allie Weeman is with this game, because she didn't start the game. Caitlin Merling started the game. She got hit a little bit. It was about 8 hits for Caitlin Merling giving up, and then Allie Weeman comes in and really put out the fire. She really stabilized what was going on in that game and allowed your offense to get things going later in the game and kept your team in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think she did a fantastic job of coming in, keeping them at bay, which is what we needed to kind of get back into those games. And I think it's important that, she shows she can have success in those situations. It's not an ideal situation to be brought into, already being down, and the ability to kind of make sure that we keep it where it is important. So.
The other 2 games then happened on Saturday, and those were a bit of a different story. The first game was extremely close. It goes 8 innings. Allison Short putting together another great outing, and your team just lost it late on in the extra innings, and then a 13-1 loss to Salisbury in Game 2. That's not really what I want to focus on from that day. that was senior day as well, and you're
Sure.
losing 3 girls at the end of this season. You have 3 seniors on this roster in Sam Gatton, in Brittany Platt, and the third one being Allison Short. These are 3 players who have greatly contributed to this program in their 4 seasons. And really what I want to get out of you is just your takeaway from what they have meant to this program and the lasting image that they're going to leave on Frostburg State softball.
You know, Sam and Allison have been here for 4 years, Brittany for 2. You know, let me start with Allison, I guess, first and foremost. You know, she's been fantastic in the circle for us all 4 years. I think, you know, we'll truly miss her, and her competitiveness and her ability to keep us in every game has been awesome. She's, you know, as great a student as she's a softball player too. So lots of wonderful things in her future. Sam has kind of been, you know, all over the place for us. She's just such a fantastic athlete that it's allowed her to play multiple places. You know, she was a first-team All-Region, All-American last year, and I think that it's her ability shows and allows us to be, you know, successful in a lot of different ways. So that part's been fantastic. Brittany's been here for 2 years and pretty much started from day one. You know, has been solid at third base, especially defensively, and was a first-team All-Conference kid. So, I mean, all 3 of those kids are all first-team All-Conference kids, and so the ability to have them in the lineup is huge. It's going to suck next year when those 3 kids aren't here for sure.
Well, now we're getting down to the real nitty-gritty of the conference slate. You have a total of 6 games, 3 dates left in the Capital Athletic Conference. There's 3 opponents left: Mary Washington, Christopher Newport, Penn State, Harrisburg. You get a pair of those this coming week. Right now, your team is 3-5 in the conference. Going into those final 3 conference dates, what is your outlook on the remainder of this season, and where do you think your team shapes up?
You know, it's just about us. We've got to correct the little things. We've got to be able to stop the beginnings from happening. You know, we're just as talented as these teams. We haven't quite shown it totally yet. My outlook is still positive. I mean, for us, it's about getting in the tournament and giving us a chance to be successful, especially with this new format, which everyone's going to be getting used to. You know, 2-3 team playoffs. You know, the first weekend is kind of a big deal, and I think you know, for us, our outlook just needs to be continue to stay positive and continue to grind it out, and you know, just play a little bit better.
Well, and then you get a big road trip this upcoming weekend. You start with Mary Washington, a doubleheader on Friday, and then Christopher Newport, who, as it stands right now, sits in first place in the Capital Athletic Conference on Saturday. I know you say that it's all about you guys at this point and how you guys play, but can you tell us a little bit about what you can expect to see from these 2 teams heading into it and how you think your teams can fare?
Yeah, I mean, they're good teams. So, I mean, I think that's why I talk about us being able to be prepared and be ready. They're good. They're going to take advantage of us making mistakes, and so that's why we have to limit our mistakes. They'll do a really good job of taking advantage of those, and being able to put up multiple runs is what we've got to be able to stop. So I talk about us because that's what I can focus on. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's about us pitching well. It's us playing defense well. It's us, you know, making better at bats. That's really what it is.
Well, Wes Landrum, thanks for joining us again. Hopefully we talk to you next week after 4 big CAC wins that would vault you up into those standings, give you better playoff positioning than you have right now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dan.
Joined now on the Bobcast by head tennis coach Aaron Wilf. And take your pick, Coach. What do you want to do? Men or women first today? What do you think? Where do we start today?
Might as well start with Penn State Altoona.
Well, all right, we'll start with Penn State Altoona. So the men will go first, and Friday, a good win against Penn State Altoona, a win that, yes, a non-conference win, but a confidence-boosting win, you'd have to think, for a lot of your guys to take down Altoona 7-2.
Yeah, like you said, it's a good win, 7-2. Everyone played well. We love the effort out there. Chastity continued to do his thing at both number 1 doubles and number 1 singles. He teamed up with Jeffrey Goldring, who got his first doubles win, actually, against Penn State Altoona. So really happy about that by an 8-4 score. Shasta had a very convincing 6-4, 6-3 win at number 1 singles. And really just down the line, everyone played well. I think we hit him really hard in the doubles. We took 3 doubles matches, so to go up 3 after doubles is huge for us. Everyone looked good. Nate Farlow, Chad O'Neill at 2, Joey Cox, Derek Thompson at 3. They won by 8-0, 8-1 scores respectively. So to get that 3-0 lead was just huge for us. And then we kind of leaned on them in the singles. Everyone played well. Nate Farley with number 3 singles, 2 and 4. Big win for him. Jeffrey Goldring again with really, really an outstanding match. That was 7-5, 5-7. Then he won 10-8 in the third set, super tiebreaker. So another big win for Jeffrey Goldring. So happy for him. And then Stephen Glassburner at number 6 singles played a very tight first set, 6-4, and then just kind of cruised 6-0 in the second set. So yeah, great team win, 7-2. We'll take it. And definitely a good day for the men's tennis team.
Well, and you get back-to-back dates then you take on Penn State Harrisburg on Saturday, and it was a little bit of a strange day. You go from the doubles. Of course, doubles is first. You take 2 out of 3 in the doubles there, and then you drop 4 out of 6 in the singles. You had to feel pretty good going into the singles competitions after what you saw out of the doubles pairings, but just weren't able to get it done at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was definitely a long match for the men against Penn State Harrisburg. We started at 12 noon. We were still on the court at 6:30, so that was a 6.5-hour match for the men. Just really went down to the wire. Like you said, very close. We were fortunate to get 2 wins in the doubles. Shasta Nolan Jones at number 1 doubles won by an 8-1 score. Very impressive. And then Joey Cox, Derek Thompson, the solid doubles team at number 3, had a really impressive 8-6 win. We dropped it at 2. But, you always feel pretty good going up 2-1 after the doubles. But, then singles just really was a battle. Every single singles match on the men's side against Penn State Harrisburg. It was a long match. They were tough matches, very competitive, and that match really went down to the wire. But really proud of the effort. Shasta again at number 1 singles, 2-2, so solid. I thought Nolan battled really hard at number 2 singles. He lost 4-5. Joey Cox, just an incredible match at number 3 singles. He won 2-5. Really proud of the effort. Nate battled. He lost a tough 3-setter. 7-3 in the third set tiebreaker. Derek battled 5-3 in his match at 5. And then Justin Davis at number 6 singles. Just an incredible match as well. It was another 3-setter, 7-5, 4-6, 6-4. So, yeah, long day. Again, 6.5-hour match. Definitely took its toll on us, but it came down to the wire. Last year, this was the team that beat us 9-0 at their place. And so for us to come out and to kind of push them for 6.5 hours and get a 5-4 final score, I think really says a lot about the strides that we've taken this year with the men's team.
Well, things were a little bit different for the women against Penn State Harrisburg on Saturday, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the first game for the women this past week was a tough one, and everybody knew coming into it was going to be a tough one. It was against Mary Washington, the number 19 ranked team in the country. Everybody knows what Mary Washington is. It ends up being a 9-0 loss, but your girls still battled and put in a good effort against one of the perennial top teams in the country.
Yeah, Mary Wash just has that reputation. They're just a very good team. We were very impressed with them, like you said, top 20 in the country, and very proud of the effort the girls battled. We actually played this match without Jenna Lipinski, who's our true number 2 singles player. So a little different lineup against Mary Washington this past week, but everyone battled. There were just no excuses. Everyone just did what they had to do, and sure, it's a tough matchup for us, but yeah, we battled. We actually won more games against them this year than we did last year. So even that is something that we can look at as a small battle that we won against them this year. And again, really proud of the effort by the girls.
Then you move on to Saturday, and well, they got the better of Penn State Harrisburg this time, and it really wasn't even close for the most part. It's a 7-2 win and a pretty impressive win to get them going in the CAC.
Yeah, great win. 7-2 for the women's team. So proud of them. Really all great doubles matches. We had Kate and Jenna lost a really tough battle at number 1 doubles 8-5. But then we had Allison Paul, Sophia Staggers at number 2 doubles. They won a really, really impressive match 8-5 at 2. And then Sammy Turner, Elizabeth Mott, just a really amazing effort at number 3 doubles. They won 9-7. So again, we took a 2-1 lead into the singles after the doubles, and then we just kind of leaned on them. We had Kate Paler, I thought played a good match at 1, was on the wrong end of a 6-3, 6-2 score. But then we had Jenna, who's just doing big things for us this year, and she won 6-1, 6-3 at 2. Allison Paul looked incredible at number 3 singles. She won 1 and 5. Sammy Turner and Sophia Staggers at 4 and 5 respectively, both won 1 and 0. And then Elizabeth Mott just had an incredible battle at number 6 singles. She won in a first set tiebreaker 7-4 and then 6-3 in the second set. So yeah, everyone played well. They brought their A game. They really wanted to win this match. They all showed up, gave 100%, and yeah, we got a really solid, good team win, 7-2 against Harrisburg.
Now going forward after these couple big wins, one on the men's side and one on the women's side, and you finally got used to going outside a little bit and practicing, and you got to, obviously the courts are being torn up here at Frostburg and they're being replaced, but you get to go down to Cumberland, and well, now Mother Nature is playing games with you and a lot of the other outdoor sports once again, so you get used to that. You start to get in a little bit of a rhythm. Now you maybe have to go back inside. How do you handle that as a coach, knowing that this isn't what we want to do, but we have to do it to keep things going?
Yeah, it's as far as I know, I'm really not that powerful to be able to control the weather. I'm working on that. I'm slowly getting there, but yeah, there's just really nothing we can do. We finally had a good weather week, like you said, and we got outside and we got to play some matches in pretty good conditions. Really, for the first time this year, we were all very excited about that. Today, tomorrow, I don't think it's looking that great. I know tonight we're going to be inside in the gym. Tomorrow, I'm seeing maybe even a little snow. It's going to be pretty cold temperatures, so most likely today, tomorrow, we'll be inside in the gym. It is what it is. We just have to deal with it. We have to be prepared for that. And hopefully by Wednesday of this week, we'll start to see the temperatures increase a little bit. Maybe we'll be outside by Wednesday, Thursday. And then this coming weekend, we have 2 matches coming up. And we're just trying to get outside as soon as possible so we can prep for these 2 big matches that we have coming up this weekend.
Well, let's talk about those 2 matches. And, of course, first things Saturday, York College, you travel to York and you get both the men and the women. And for the women, it's their last match of the season, the last scheduled match of the season. Tell us real fast what you know about York College going into this game and what you hope to see from both of your teams that you can look at, okay, this is one of our last matches. It was good now. Now let's build on that going into next year.
Yeah, York is a very solid team. They're probably right in the middle of the conference. They are, I believe, as of right now, a playoff team going into the end of this year. So, yeah, just very very impressive team, well coached, just really really solid, very consistent. We just have to play our game. As I've said in the past, we just need to do the things that we do well, and if we can do that, I think we're going to have success on the court. Both on the men's and the women's side. So we just have to go up there. We're gonna, try to put our strongest lineup out on the court for both the men and the women against York. And again, we're gonna try to play to our strengths. We're gonna try to attack their weaknesses, and we're just gonna do everything we can to get some wins and try to improve on what we did against them last year.
And then on Sunday, the men have one more opportunity to get into the win column, a game non-conference against Bethany. And again, you'd have to think of it as, yeah, it's non-conference to end the season, but a very, very good opportunity to see what the men have and to see what you can build upon going into next year for the men here at Frostburg.
Yeah, it's going to be a good match, I think, against Bethany College. We have them coming in. That'll be played at Mountain Ridge High School on Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, just like you said, it's going to be a great opportunity to try to get one final win before we kind of call it a season this year and get ready for next year. So, yeah, we're gonna do everything we can to prepare as much as we can for both York and Bethany, and try to steal a win or 2 in this last weekend of the season. Everyone's excited. Everyone's really prepared to work hard this week, and coaches have been really proud of the effort. And we're going to continue to do everything we can to develop this program, build up these student athletes, and try to get a couple wins this weekend.
Aaron Wilf, wise words as always. Thanks for the time. We'll talk to you again next week. I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head track and field coach Dale Louie, and coach, it was a long week for your track team. 3-day event at Messiah, the Messiah Mountain Invitational. And before we even get into the results or anything like that, 3 days, that is a little different than what you guys typically do. I mean, sometimes you do 2 days. A lot of the time you're just doing 1 day. As a coach, how do you handle that differently, knowing that it is a long 3-day event with all of your athletes there together? How do you handle that any differently than a 1-day or a 2-day event?
Well, we actually don't have them all there. It's just, we kind of space them out there. We had the multis there Thursday, Friday. Men's discus, came there Friday afternoon for their. Then the rest of them came on Saturday. So the toll's a little bit more on the coach than the athletes and stuff. For the multis, it's obviously a long 2 days because they're out there, a good 6 hours, each day, just competing, not even counting, warming up and warming down and stuff like that. So, fortunately this year, the weather all 3 days was really great. Very nice with the contrast to most of the spring so far. And the performances, were indicators of that better weather there.
Now let's start with the women's side this week, and 3 athletes in total each had 2 individual ECAC marks this week. When you look at it from the Kayla Truesdale, who continued to dominate her competition as she has every week. Then you had Maddie Watson hit 2 ECAC marks, which is good to see from her, and Zoe Harris also a pair of ECAC marks. Looking at it, we'll start with Maddie Watson because I think she's the one that being a first year, it's impressive to see that she's already capable of hitting those sort of marks and getting herself into that upper echelon of competition.
Yeah, Maddie has really improved through the course of the season. Works extremely hard at practice. Works hard at the meets. She just doesn't take off, so to speak. And that's one of the reasons why she's continued to improve so much. And for first year, she's running some pretty impressive times. If we can get her to continue to progress over 3 years, I really think the sky's the limit for her because, she's still pretty inexperienced in the area of track and field.
And then Zoe Harris also hitting 2 ECAC marks. She hit 1 in the shot put to go along with 2 top 10 finishes and 1 in the javelin. She finishes 10th in the shot and 3rd in the javelin. And from obviously the javelin has become really her primary go-to event, but she's become one of your top athletes on the women's side that can score you some points. I mean, as a team, you finished 5th, and she was a big time instrument in getting you to that 15th or that 5th place with the 3rd place in the javelin.
Right. She certainly reached a level of consistency in both of those events, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see how she closes out her last year of collegiate competition. She's healthy. With her at her level of development, it's a matter of, what's her commitment to technique. If she continues to make a commitment to technique, good things will come. Consistency will be there. And hopefully some of that rubs off on some of the newer throwers out there as well.
The one place that I think you can look at now every single day out, let's take the individual stuff that Kayla Truesdale does for you out of it. One place when you're looking at the scoring that you can almost look at and say, all right, we're going to get some good points here anymore is those reloads. Another ECAC mark in the 4x1, another ECAC mark in the 4x4, and it just seems like at this point, with a combination of about 6 different girls, you can pair any of those 6 together and come away with a very, very good result.
Yeah, you're right. And that's a nice situation for us to have because we've had some little aches and pains. We like to mix some things up and use those meets for training purposes at times. We've actually been, mixing up our order to try to achieve those same things. And it's something we really haven't had on the women's side for quite some time. So it's a nice little luxury to have, and hopefully they can continue to push. We indoors there at the end of the year in a 4x4 really came very close to qualifying for nationals, and we would hope that we have a shot at that and the 4x1 in outdoors here. Things are going to have to break right, but certainly there's some realistic goals that hopefully the women start honing in on.
I think now as we transition to the men's side of things from this past week, I think the place to start the athlete to really look at is what Shamar Nelson did this week. He hit 3 individual ECAC marks. He won the long jump. He took second in the 100-meter dash, and he has really turned into a great athlete for you and just an extremely versatile athlete that almost you can put anywhere and say, all right, Shamar, you're running the 100-meter dash today. Go ahead, get us some points. You're doing the long jump today. Go ahead, get us some points, and you can have confidence that he's going to do that.
Yeah. He struggled a little this year with the long jump, so it was really nice to see not only the fact that he put that long jump out there, but when you look at his entire series, he probably had the best series of jumps that he's had in his collegiate career there Saturday, so that's great. To be honest with you, the longest jump he had, technically, there were some things there that really were there in some of his other jumps that weren't there in that last jump. So, he and I, right away talked about that, and we're not looking at that from a negative standpoint.
No.
It's just like, okay, we fix these other things, and maybe going over 7 meters is a real goal. And Kevon Adams, had a pretty good day there jumping, probably the best he's jumped in a while, and he's really struggled on the runway, and we've really been working on that. And we really have 2 jumpers there that are certainly capable of placing in a conference meet, and they both talent-wise have the ability to take a chance at getting that 7 meter mark, which is pretty significant.
A couple other ECAC marks hit in that one in that event or in that meet as well, rather. And John Kearns continues to dominate in the hammer throw, and again, he's still just a sophomore. James Nail hitting the ECAC mark in the javelin, and it seems like after the past couple weeks, you've really started to be able to develop some athletes, different athletes. It's not always the same ones, but here and there, guys can really score you some points, and it seems like you're going to have quite a few different guys headed to the ECAC championships come the end of the spring.
Yeah, and that's always been our goal since we started coaching here, and that is really to try to develop a total track and field team. Some schools put some emphasis on particular event areas and stuff like that, and we've gone the route of trying to have a total track and field team. And when you look at the 17 championship appearances we've made at NCAAs, we've been in a number of different events, and our scoring is across the board. And as you mentioned earlier there on the women's side, our relays are starting to come together. So if you can do that, you stand a chance of picking up points here and there, and then you hope you get some big ones along the way too.
Well, coming up this weekend is another big one as you head to the Mason-Dixon Invitational at Gettysburg College. Going into that one, what can you tell us about the competition that you're going to see, and how do you think your athletes stack up to the competition that you will see at Gettysburg?
The competition should be pretty good in all the event areas. The schools that are going to be there, or at least I believe it will be there. A number of them have some strength in certain areas and things, and so that really balances out the competition. In other words, we'll see some really good throwing competition. We will see some good distance competition along the way there, and some schools have some decent relays that hopefully will push our relays as well.
Well, Dale, Louie, good luck to you and your team both coming up this weekend as you travel to Gettysburg, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you very much.